Hindsight bias is the tendency to believe, after an event has occurred, that the outcome was predictable or inevitable, even if there was little way of knowing it beforehand. This bias can make people overestimate their ability to foresee events and underestimate the role of chance. It often occurs because the mind reconstructs past events in a way that makes the result seem obvious, even when the original situation was uncertain. Hindsight bias can affect decision-making, judgment, and learning by making individuals feel overly confident in their ability to predict future events. Now let's look at some examples of hindsight bias in everyday life. Hindsight bias appears in many situations, from personal experiences to professional fields. For example, after a sports game, a fan might claim they knew all along which team would win, even though the outcome was uncertain before the game started. In academics, students might believe an exam question was easy only after seeing the correct answer, even if they were unsure before. In financial markets, investors often assume that stock price movements were predictable after they happen, despite the uncertainty beforehand. This bias can also appear in historical events, where people believe outcomes were obvious, ignoring the complexity and unpredictability of real-time decision-making. Now let's explore ways to reduce hindsight bias. One way to reduce hindsight bias is by keeping records of predictions before an event occurs. Writing down thoughts and expectations can help people see how uncertain a situation was before the outcome was known. Another strategy is considering alternative possibilities by asking, what else could have happened? This helps remind individuals that multiple outcomes were possible. Practicing critical thinking and acknowledging the role of chance in events can also reduce hindsight bias. By being aware of this cognitive bias, people can improve their judgment and make more accurate assessments of past events. Now let's look at an alternative explanation for why people experience hindsight bias. An alternative explanation for hindsight bias is the confirmation bias, which occurs when people focus on information that supports their existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory evidence. While hindsight bias makes events seem more predictable after they happen, confirmation bias leads people to seek out information that reinforces what they already think is true. Both biases can distort thinking, but confirmation bias influences how people gather and interpret information, while hindsight bias affects how they remember and judge past events. Understanding these cognitive biases can help individuals think more critically and make better informed decisions.